Greetings, family. This is Mikhail Massa, bringing you hidden wisdom and lost spiritual truths. Today, we uncover the powerful connection between African spirituality, the Book of Revelation, and the true meaning of King Kong. In the Book of Revelation, specifically in chapter 4, verse 7, there is a description of 4 living creatures surrounding the throne of God. The first creature was like a lion, the second was like a calf, the third had the face of a man, and the fourth was like a flying eagle. This sequence of animals carries deep symbolic meaning, not only in biblical texts, but also in the context of African spirituality and ancient knowledge. The imagery of these animals is not arbitrary. In African spirituality, animals often serve as archetypes representing power, authority, and divine attributes. For example, the lion symbolizes strength and royalty, the calf or bull is associated with sacrifice and fertility, the eagle represents vision and divine perspective, and the face of a man points to intelligence, leadership, and humanity. Interestingly, the creature with the face of a man can be linked to the gorilla in the context of Bantu symbolism. The gorilla, being the animal that most closely resembles humans in appearance and behavior, is seen as an archetype of power and authority in African traditions. This does not mean that God is a gorilla, but rather that the gorilla represents certain divine attributes, such as strength and leadership. In many African spiritual systems, the gorilla is revered as a symbol of power. For instance, the name King Kong is not just a modern cinematic creation. It has roots in African symbolism. The term Kong can be traced back to the Kongo region, where it signifies greatness and authority. The phrase King Kong essentially means great king or king of the Congo, reflecting the reverence for the gorilla as a powerful archetype. This symbolism is not about equating God with an animal, but rather about using animals as metaphors to convey spiritual truths. The gorilla, in this context, represents the strength and authority of the divine. The Bible itself contains layers of symbolic meaning, much of which aligns with ancient African knowledge. For example, in the book of Psalms, specifically Psalm 82:1, it is written that God stands in the congregation of the mighty and judges among the gods. This passage raises the question of who these gods are in the midst of whom God stands. In African spirituality, this can be interpreted as a reference to divine beings or ancestral spirits who assist in the governance of the universe. It reflects the idea that God works through a hierarchy of spiritual entities, a concept deeply rooted in African cosmologies. The book of Genesis states that humans were created in the image and likeness of God. This idea is echoed in the Psalms, where it is said that God sits among the gods. These passages suggest that humans, as divine creations, carry a spark of the divine within them. In African spirituality, this is often expressed through the belief that humans are connected to the divine through their ancestors and spiritual archetypes. The animal symbolism in the Book of Revelation and other biblical texts is deeply interconnected with African spiritual traditions. The lion, calf, eagle, and gorilla are not just animals. They are archetypes representing divine attributes and powers. By understanding these symbols, we gain a deeper appreciation of the shared spiritual heritage between biblical texts and African knowledge systems. This exploration reminds us that much of the wisdom in the Bible is symbolic, not literal. It invites us to look beyond the surface and uncover the profound truths encoded in these ancient texts. Now I'll be talking about respect for the dead. What is the perspective on the dead? What do we know about the dead? For example, do the dead know something? Do the dead claim to have knowledge? Do the dead have consciousness? Do the dead have wisdom? These are questions about the world of the dead, and today we'll explore them. I'll approach this from 2 perspectives, the Bantu viewpoint and the biblical viewpoint. What does the Bible say about the dead? I won't use too many texts because the video isn't very long, so I'll focus on key passages and analyze them. Let's start with a summary of the Bantu perspective. In Bantu spirituality, it is believed that the physical human being is a spiritual being. When we die, we are in transition. This is why the terms for death in many Bantu languages often translate to transition. Our burial rituals are rites of passage because it is believed that the individual leaves their body and their spirit returns to the spiritual world from which it came. This means we are not just physical beings. The spirit is aware that it existed, aware that it has left the body. This is the Bantu perspective. It's not unique to the Bantu, as other cultures and even some ancient Jewish traditions share similar beliefs. But let's now analyze what the Bible says about the dead. In Ecclesiastes 9:10, it is written, "Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might, for in the realm of the dead, where you are going, there is neither working nor planning, nor knowledge nor wisdom." This text clearly states that the dead know nothing. They do not speak, they do not hear, and they have no wisdom. This passage is attributed to King Solomon, who says he thought deeply and concluded that God controls what happens to the wise and the foolish. However, it's important to note that this is Solomon's analysis, not a direct revelation from God. He says he thought about it and came to this conclusion, but it's his perspective, not necessarily a universal truth. Now let's look at another biblical text, Revelation 6:9-11. In this passage, John has a vision where he sees the souls of those who had been killed because of their testimony about God. These souls cry out loudly, asking how long it will be until God judges and avenges their deaths. They are given white robes and told to wait a little longer until the full number of their fellow servants and brothers and sisters are killed, just as they had been. This passage shows that the dead are aware, they speak, and they cry out for justice. This seems to contradict the idea in Ecclesiastes that the dead know nothing. So we have two different perspectives within the Bible itself. On one hand, Solomon says the dead know nothing, but on the other hand, John's vision in Revelation shows the dead as conscious beings who cry out for justice. How do we reconcile this? It's important to understand that Solomon's words are his own analysis, while John's vision is a revelation of what he saw. John describes the souls of the dead as active and aware, which challenges the idea that the dead are completely unconscious. In conclusion, the question remains, do the dead know something or not? According to the Bantu perspective, the dead are conscious and transition to the spiritual world. In the Bible, we see two different views: Solomon's conclusion that the dead know nothing, and John's vision of the dead as aware and vocal. This invites us to think deeply about these texts and what they mean. Thank you for following along, and I look forward to continuing this discussion with you soon. The truth has always been with us. It's time to reclaim it. Stay strong, stay awakened, and never stop seeking knowledge. This is Mikhail Massa. Until next time, Ingeda.